Welcome back to the Tavern, World Builders. Today we are talking about a tabletop role-playing game show, Fantasy High Freshman Year. This is one of Dropout TV's Dimension 20 shows with Game Master Brennan Lee Mulligan, who is joined by comedians as the players, and they blend comedy with tabletop RPGs, in this case Dungeons & Dragons. Beware, for anybody who has not watched this, we will be spoiler full. Grab an ale, zero proof always available, and pull up a chair. I'm Emma, your friendly barkeep, along with Allison.
Hello!
And Christiana.
Bonjour.
And we are so happy to have you here. Cheers!
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 So, I'm going to jump in with the description here. I am wondering if this is maybe one that fewer of our listeners will be familiar with. It's pretty big in if you like actual play shows, but in the wider society, it's probably still not as big. So I'm curious to see how many people have heard of it. If you have not watched it, you absolutely should, if you think it sounds good, because it's absolutely fantastic, and I'm so excited we get to talk about it. But here's the description. At the beginning of a new school year at the Agfort Adventuring Academy, the premier training ground for heroes and adventurers, 6 freshmen prepare for their first day. Fabian Seacaster, the son of a famous pirate, Kristen Applebees, devout cleric and chosen of Helio, Gorgug Thistlespring, a half-orc raised by gnome, Adine Abernant, the daughter of the elven ambassador, Riz Gukgak, an up-and-coming detective searching for his missing babysitter, and Fig Faeth, a rebellious rock star in progress looking for her biological demon dad. For a variety of reasons, these 6 teens all end up getting detention on the first day, resulting in them being the only ones at the school when a strange magical summoning occurs. After fighting off the threat, the Academy's principal, Arthur Agfort, kills himself and the guidance counselor in... I'm sorry, that was the biggest spoiler of all time, but it's a fantastic moment. They kill 2 deaths to raise the fallen members of the group, proclaiming that only the group can save the world. Afterwards, the group becomes an official adventuring party and pledges to find out what is happening at the school. Throughout a school year of hijinks and investigation, they discover that the vice principal has been the one behind it all along, and is, in fact, an ancient dragon emperor who was imprisoned and cursed to teach at the local high school after being defeated in ages past. In the final battle of the season, which of course takes place in the gymnasium during prom, just as it looks like all is lost and the season will end with a total party kill, Kristen, or Allie, who plays them, rolls a clutch nat 20 to free Principal Agfort from heaven, and the bad kids vanquish Calvaxis, who is the vice principal, to the 9 hells, and, more importantly, they pass their freshman year.
Yay!
It's so good.
It's so good! Let's go to happy hour! Let's talk about how much we all love this.
It's so funny. It's so funny, and it makes me want to play D&D again once I have more free time. I'm like, that's my first thing. Because I was always the kind of person who played and really enjoyed a DM who would let me do aggressively dumb things, like flip a car, thinking that it's going to only hurt the enemy. I love, dumb D&D, and this is, the pinnacle of very dumb and also very smart D&D. And it's just so funny. I love every single person who's around the table. Yeah.
Yeah, I've watched Fantasy High, I think probably 3 or 4 times now this season. It's one of my comfort shows. I love it. It's so good.
Oh, really?
It's so funny. And
it's long, though, is the one thing I will say.
Yeah. It's 20 episodes and they're all 2 or 3
hours.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I came to Fantasy High from being a fan of Critical Role. So whenever anyone says it's long, I'm like, no, it's not.
That's
it's
true.
So
Critical
short.
Role is much longer. Yeah.
But compared to a normal TV
a 20-minute TV show.
Yeah. 20 or 45 minutes. It is long. But I actually, so Critical Role is great and wonderful, and I still love it. But I like Fantasy High and Dimension 20 better, actually.
Ooh, wow.
I think
high praise.
Brennan Lee Mulligan, I would give up one of my limbs to be able to play at a table with him as DM, because he's incredible. So good.
Yeah. For anybody not familiar with the lingo, DM stands for Dungeon Master, and they are kind of the narrator of the game.
And they act every other character who's not being played.
So every character, so at this table, it's 6 improv artists. They're all improv comedians. They're a group of friends, and they each have their character, which is how you play D&D. You create a character and you take your character through different situations. So they all have their PCs or player characters, and then the Dungeon Master is all of the non-player characters. So they're the bad guys, they're the allies, they're the friends and family, and then they also kind of generally provide some of those like story hooks and plots and kind of create the world that the players are playing in.
I'm obsessed with the Cubbies, the family of halflings. It's so funny because at first they're so nice.
They're like this Midwestern like family.
Oh,
like, typical.
You might be in trouble with the police. Well, I'm saying you call one of them out to lure them and put a bag over their head. I'm not saying you have to put down a pig. And everyone around the table is like, what? Can we roll perception? Like, there's something weird going on here, but it's just an anarchist postman halfling. And I'm like obsessed. It's so
At one
funny.
point, he like breaks them out of jail. And he's like, remember, kids, laws are only rules imposed by the rich on the poor. Like, it's fantastic.
So funny. I love it. Accurate,
they're really
but
great
also
characters. I do want to mention why I think I like Dimension 20 better than Critical Role. Critical Role feels more like a real game of D&D.
Because it's live.
The characters are driving things and going through adventures, and Matt Mercer, who is the DM, who is also an amazing
Also
DM,
amazing.
is sort of guiding them through whatever they want to do. Whereas I feel like Dimension 20 is much more story-based, which really appeals to me as a writer and editor. It's a little more structured, which some people wouldn't like as much, but I love it. So it feels more like, here's these characters, and they each have their arcs that they are going through that may be a little bit more planned than what Critical Role does.
There's definitely a lot of little Easter eggs and nods as you get further into the series of being like, oh, okay, that was actually set up pretty earlier on.
It's still not scripted, like just for anybody listening.
No,
it is an
not at all
improv thing, and it's like
scripted,
dice rolls. But yes, I think there's more
even thinking about like every item they're given is like given to them for a reason or like is part of a story as opposed to like just getting a random sword as loot in a game. You know, like when Fabian gets like the motorcycle, it just feels more story based, and it's also very funny, which is partly because all the players are comedians.
Yes, it's definitely like an intentionally comedic show.
So I love it so much.
Everyone's favorite character?
Ooh, it's probably Fabian.
I knew you were gonna say that.
I love him. He's just this like spoiled like rich boy who like calls it Papa, where are my kippers? But he like goes on this like fantastic character arc, and it's so good. Especially in like late, like there's 3 seasons of Fantasy High out now that they've done, and it's just like it's awesome. I love all of the bad kids, but I do love Fabian.
He's amazing. I think my favorite is Gorgug.
I just love Gorgug is so good.
I love, he's just this sweet half-orc, and I also just love Zach Oyama's acting.
Yeah, I was
Zach
say,
is incredible. I think he's my favorite performer, but
his comedic timing is like impeccable. He's like an assassin where he'll actually play the game really seriously, and then every once in a while just say something so out of pocket and funny.
Also, playing a dumb character is really difficult to do well. So I always admire players who do it really well, because it's actually really hard. And then I also have a soft spot in my heart for Adine, because I feel like she's very much like my personality. She has anxiety, but she's also like really bookish and a wizard and like loves studying, and I'm like, yes, I relate to all of this.
Yeah. So my favorite is Kristen Appleby's, partially because I just love Allie Beardsley. I think they are one of the funniest people to ever exist.
They're wonderful.
They're incredible.
And the way they are so in character, but also just themselves and very funny. There's one particular scene where, since Kristen Appleby's is like, you know, a youth group kid and like very religious and is like the chosen prophet of Helios, there's in one of the early episodes, she goes, "Fuck yeah. Whoa, wait. Heck yeah." Just immediately corrects themselves. It's so funny. Also, sorry, when I say she, when I'm referring to Allie Beardsley, I'm referring to
the
Kristen
character.
Appleby's, the character.
Allie is they that goes by they, them, but they're playing Kristen Appleby's, who goes by she,
who goes by she, her.
I will say I love every single character. Like, Emily Axford as Fig is also amazing.
Is incredible.
And Brian Murphy as Riz. Like, they're also...
And it's also like, it's the ensemble. It's like, I love all 6 of them together so much more than like any individual character on their own. Like, just
but,
like
okay, I do have to give a shout out to my favorite character in the series, which is played by Brandon Lee Mulligan. She only comes in season 2. But
I haven't seen her yet.
Ida
Is it
Eggfort,
Ida? Oh, yeah.
who is like a half phoenix and very awkward character, and I love awkward characters.
She's very autistic coded,
yes,
which people have really related to, like in the fandom and stuff. And
yeah,
she's,
so
like,
plug
sweet.
for season 2.
Season 2 is also
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, okay, so we have gone on and on about how much we like it. Now let's talk about the great stuff that they do with their world building. Let's head on over to Tavern Talk. So this show fits into the comic fantasy genre, and it also fits into not quite genre, but I think that there are some interesting elements from it being like a role-playing game, and specifically like a role-playing game comic fantasy. So I think we'll focus on the comic fantasy part, but then have a little chat about like how it being a role-playing game also fits
also,
into, like, genre
I just
and
want to
tropes and
touch
stuff.
on how the world is really interesting because it's a fantasy world, but it also looks kind of like a 1950s through 1980s America, which is very unusual.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite parts about it. It's not like pure high fantasy. There's like phones.
Yeah,
and
crystals. They
internet,
have
and there's an
crystals.
AV
which-
club. Yeah.
yeah.
It's very fun and unusual, and I don't know if I've ever seen or read anything quite like it.
Yeah.
I have a couple examples in my pocket.
Ooh,
in
nice.
In regards to that.
It's kind of like, is it, I'm trying to remember the name of the show. Was it Fallout, where they're in the, like, tube capsule
Fallout
things?
is one of them, where it's like retrofuturism to some extent.
Yeah.
This is less
This is like
retrofuturism.
Fantasyism.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of them.
So some of the things that you see pop up in comic fantasy a lot is, of course, being lighthearted. That kind of often comes with the territory. Not that you can't have like dramatic moments or serious moments, because we'll talk about that more, because the show definitely does. But like overall, the tone is lighthearted. And just a note, when we refer to comic fantasy, it is comic as in comedic, not comic as in a comic book. So we may interchange comic and comedic, just know that we mean funny.
It's funny.
Humorous fantasy.
Yes.
So definitely this is a lighthearted show.
It doesn't
Like, the
take
tone
itself
is
too
lighthearted.
seriously.
Yes, yeah. And then turning familiar fantasy tropes on their heads and doing the unexpected, doing things that are exaggerated is definitely very comedic. And I think that this show does that.
They do
in
that all the
spades.
time.
Yeah.
One of my favorite examples of that is like, you see, I think frequently in stories, even like anywhere where you're getting like cafeteria food, it's like, here's your disgusting slop. And like, that's the funny part. But this time it's like, actually, it's a giant creamed corn monster with many buttholes. Fight it. And like, that's funny. Like, it just takes it to that super extreme level. So
Yeah.
And then they do contrasting things. So, for example, they do it between characters. So you have this raging barbarian orc who's too big for his bed, Gorga, versus his smiley gnome parents who tell him to sing when he feels mad, which is so funny. So, like, that type of contrast is just funny in itself. And the show, they do that a lot. Like, even, like, another example that comes to mind is the contrast between Fig's two dads. So her adopted dad, Galir, also one of my favorite characters.
And also a trope turned on its head, for sure. Like, he's this mundane high elf who's like a dad with like a beer belly and like is just totally pathetic with yogurt on him all the time.
Funniest lines is he's like, have you ever seen a fat elf? I've never seen a fat elf, but here I am. I was dying at that.
Yeah.
In season 2, they can take along hirelings on their adventure that they go on for the academy, and they decide to take Galir.
It's so funny.
He dies every fight because he's just a guy. He
like
doesn't have magical powers. He has like 5 hit points.
They keep having to revive him, and he keeps being like, I died 5 minutes ago. I'm not handling this well. It's so good. And Brandon's accent for it is perfect. But
so
yes,
good.
Allison, go on.
My
So you have
point
that
was
dad
the contrast
versus...
between that dad versus Fig's biological father, who's this demon, Gorthalax? That's his name, right?
Yeah.
Who's just like this big yogurt demon, although he's actually has he's kind of sweet,
but,
softy
yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So just like things like that just existing is just funny in itself, you know?
Yeah.
It just adds to this lightheartedness, silliness.
Yeah. Or like, things that you don't expect. Like, and some of that is like, it's not just Brennan, because like the characters are also making, like the players are also making choices for their characters. So like, even like Adine having anxiety, like that's not a thing that comes up in fantasy all that often, especially not again like for an elf. Like you take these tropes of like, well, elves are always like really composed and like
stoic,
regal and like and it's like, here's an elf with an anxiety disorder and she's like having panic attacks, and which both comes as like humorous but then also like humanizes the characters and like makes you relate to them, which is very sweet, and especially because they're all teenagers.
Unusual to do that in an RPG as well. Like she has to roll for when she
Yeah,
has
I
panic
really
attack,
liked
which is fun.
that was included in part of the actual gameplay mechanics.
me
I thought
too.
that was really I, as someone with an anxiety disorder who frequently freaks out, would love if I could just roll the dice instead of submitting to it every single time. That would be great.
And it's very sweet because they end up, one of the NPCs that they encounter is this bouncer at a club named Jawbone, who's this werewolf who ends up like becoming the guidance counselor at their
and he's
school.
so good at it.
And there's this beautiful moment in the last episode where he runs, like during the fight, and Adine, I think, like runs into him and she's talking about her panic attacks, and he like is like, there's nothing wrong with you. You have an anxiety disorder. You need medication. You don't need people to be like shaming you for this. And then she gets like anxiety meds, and then she doesn't have to like keep rolling as much, or like gets an advantage when she rolls and stuff. And it's just like a very sweet, like supportive moment where he's like, your family has failed you by not supporting you and making you feel like you were less than because of this, but you are not less than. And it's just like such a sweet moment. So
which also
a
I
fantastic
think
character.
kind of puts a fantasy trope on its head, because there is often in fantasy where someone is motivated by a disability, which is not something that I love in fantasy, seeing it frequently, but I think their approach to it is they kind of flipped it, where
what do you mean by
in
motivated by disability?
Well, you see frequently where it's like someone's like, I'm going to get the magic crystal so I can fix myself so I can walk properly again. Or like, I'm going to take this potion. I need
find the cure.
Find the cure to this thing. And it's this magical cure. I have to go on a big quest so I can fix myself and become a whole person.
Or
and so
fix
I think,
your disabled sibling who's helpless.
Yeah, exactly. Something like
yeah.
that. And I think that was like that's an interesting way to kind of flip the trope on its head, where it's there in the beginning, but then instead of it being like, oh, you know, this character went on the quest and found the cure, it was like, no, it's actually like, you just need some therapy and probably some meds.
And support
you'll be good.
from people.
And support.
Well, you might
like,
not be good. Like, it's not going to cure you, but it will help.
But like, it's not going to be like something that you have to roll for every single time.
Yeah, it's like there's things that can make you coping with this easier, but you weren't broken because of it. It's not like we need to fix you. We want to help you because this is making your life harder, and we want to like make it less
But it's
hard.
not just like, I need to find the wish giver to make my one wish that I don't have it anymore. It's like, no, you just need some support, and we'll get through it together as a team.
But also in this, the world of Spire is like meticulously built. Like you can tell that. So this is like Brennan's world that he's built, and it's like so. He put so much like love and care into it, and it's like so like the aesthetic, like we talked about, like it being kind of like 1950s is very cool. And then it's interesting because some of the stuff that pops up, like crystals and stuff, is stuff that the characters talk about. They're like, do I have a cell phone? And Brendan's like, yeah, I guess you have a cell phone. Sure, why not? So it's like also the role-playing aspect is very interesting because it's not just a static world that the Dungeon Master has created. It's a world that people interact with and change, and then you have to incorporate it into the world, but it still is this like beautiful and like well thought out place.
I'm always so curious how much Brennan knows and how much he's making up on the spot. The characters will ask like Galir something, and Galir will go off on like this big spiel about backstory and like his history with Fig's mom and some other story, and you're like, did he know this already, or is he just like making this up? I don't know.
I think it's probably 60-40.
Yeah, he's a master of improv. I'm sure he has like an idea of where it's gonna go.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of this world has already been built. I mean, I know a lot of this world has been built beforehand. So I'm curious like how deep the world building is and how much is made on the spot. It's a good balance, whatever they're doing.
Well, one of the like prime examples of this, which is like the big spoiler that I talked about in the description, is the end of episode 2, which is like iconic in the fandom because there's this fight. Because a lot of the players were new to D&D, like only a couple of them had played before, so they didn't exactly know like the best way, like most strategic ways to do combat and stuff. 2 of the characters ended up dying. And Brennan talks about this, about how he was like panicking at that point because he's like, oh my goodness, 2 of these players have died in the second episode. He was also talking about like how he was new to Dropout, like this was his first like big show that he was in charge of. He's like, this is like my like breakout thing. 2 of the characters have died, and he's talking about how he had to like balance those stakes because it's like, well, you don't want them to like just be dead, like that's changes the whole tone of the whole rest of the story. But then he's like, but also you can't just like hand wave and bring them back to the life because then that totally undercuts all of the stakes of your story. So then thinking on his feet, he had the principal come in and then with the guidance counselor, Agfort says, "A life for a life, eh, Mr. Gibbons?" and then shoots himself and the guidance counselor in the head and they both die to bring these characters back to life. And oh my goodness. And he talks about how he had a whole different plot planned out. Like he had this whole thing with Agfort that like never happened because he was dead and like he had to change his whole story because of that. But like, what a great solution because it kept the stakes. Like you still had people die, you still had real consequences for actions, but the characters got to stay alive. And it's like, oh my goodness, the like brilliance.
Even though it sounds so serious, the fact that this is like a comedic sort of fantasy, it weirdly worked with it because it was just so absurd.
Yeah. You
like
should have seen the players' faces.
They're like
that could have been a really,
Yeah.
really grim response to a story, but somehow just like he gives this really, really, really long speech, and everyone's like, "Do we leave? Do we like? Is he going to save us? Is he not going to save? Like, what are we doing?" And they just like blam, blam, and gets both of them, and everyone's like, "Oh!" Like it's so unexpected that it's kind of funny in a really dark way.
Yeah.
So Dimension 20, they have a ton of RPG shows, and one of the other ones with the exact same cast is based on Game of Thrones.
Yes,
which
Crown
is
of Candy. Yes.
It's so
spoilers.
good,
I guess I'm going to say spoilers up top, whatever Allison's about to say.
I was just going to say it's very cutthroat because it's Game of Thrones and characters die. So they all had created a second character coming in knowing that it would be very likely that a character's going to die, and several characters do.
Yeah.
But I assume they probably didn't do that for this one.
No. I don't think so. Especially because it was like their first time doing it. Yeah.
But it does tie into that whole kind of, again, trope and like comedy fantasy of like truly absurd situations.
Yes. Yeah. And juxtaposition, again, just not a spoiler for Crown of Candy, but it's called the Crown of Candy because it's set in like Candyland. So again, talk about juxtaposition of like it's Game of Thrones, but everybody is candy. Like there's a chocolate rabbit as one of the characters. Like talk about like your humorous like settings and juxtapositions.
Also a great example.
Yeah. Comedic fantasy often has things about like a parody of the real world or like holding up a mirror to society and like making fun of it, which like this definitely does. Like the Cubbies, right? Like talking about the like prison system and like
I think
police
one of the
violence.
best examples of this is Kristen Appleby's character arc. At least it spoke to me a lot about this because she is deeply religious.
She's the prophet.
Yeah,
like,
and
not
it's
just
very
deeply
like
religious.
evangelical Christian.
Yeah,
coded.
very evangelical Christian. And then she starts questioning her faith because she meets her god, the corn god.
Helio,
corn
soul.
And he's
god.
just a jock.
Helio.
He's just like a horrible frat boy jock.
And so she asks him, why is there suffering in the world? And he just kind of shrugs it off and doesn't really answer her. And then her whole faith is collapsing around her after that. And she like changes her deity several times. And like has questions her faith. So I found that just very poignant as someone who grew up in evangelical Christianity and then started questioning things.
Yeah.
But I think it still falls into that parody category because it's not like Helio wasn't just like evil. He was just like an obnoxious frat boy, which makes it funny. Yeah. And it like kind of brings it back around where it's like, instead of, it could have been like a really, really intense conversation. And it was to some extent.
But it's also over the top, and
it's
also
so over the top and
gods
silly.
Are real. Like no one's questioning whether they exist or not. It's like they're really there, but
but do I want to worship
kind of a
this
jerk?
guy? Yeah. There's also a scene with the AV club where one of the guys is basically a quintessential like nice guy. Like he's talking about how like girls Biz. Yeah, he's like complaining about how like girls don't like him and like nobody likes guys like me. They only go. And then Adine like rips into him. She's like, but what do you actually bring to the table? Like, are you actually a good partner? Like, why? Like, it's like a 2-minute. Like, she just like eviscerates this character.
It was
and
so
he also
funny.
turns out to be like a terrible person. So,
he ended up being the bad guy.
One of the antagonists.
The line where she's like, I'm gonna, oh God, I don't want to be doing this to you right now, but like, I don't want you to take offense to this, but like, I think you think you're bringing a lot to the table, but are you?
Yeah. What do you have to offer?
What do you have to offer? And Brendan Lee Mulligan as the character is like, kind of hard to find a way to take that. That's isn't negative.
Yeah.
That's very good.
Definitely also like one-liner jokes and running jokes are obviously a big part of comedic fantasy. And
because these are comedians, they do that all the time.
Oh, they're so good. It's so funny. One of the reoccurring jokes is Gorga, because he's adopted, trying to figure out who his dad is and like asking various characters like, are you my dad? And like having to roll for it. And there's one point where he rolls a natural 1 and then Brendan goes on this thing. He's like, you think about this and you're a little bit ashamed that for a moment you begin to wonder, are you your own dad? And it's just like, and this is after again that like repeat, like this has come up like 4 or 5 times of him like asking, like he asks like Principal Agford, are you my dad? Like, and it's just, it's so funny. But yeah, there's like so many running jokes that like keep popping up over and over again.
But it all ties back into the world building of it all, right? Like it's not just like quips for the sake of quips. Like it exists within the context of that kind of world that they built. It's not just, this is a funny thing to say right now. It's what's happening in this world that we built and what's the funniest possible approach.
Well, and the funny things that they say always tie into their characters. It's not just a random funny thing. It's like, oh, this is what that character would say in this moment.
Yeah. Like there's a reoccurring thing of like Fig pretends to be really guarded, but like she's so unabashedly like loves her friends, like talks about how much she cares about them all the time. But then she'll have these things where like she's like, guys, I know I don't really like wear my heart on my sleeve and like I'm pretty guarded, and they're all like, no, you literally do. Like Fig, you do. Tell us this all the time. It's like that's another like reoccurring. But yeah, that's like very tied into like their characters and the world. Absurd situations we've already like. So many absurd situations, like just the lunch lady becomes evil.
The corn cuties,
Adine ends up beating the lunch lady to death with a ladle
on her first day. On her first day at school,
she gets detention and then beats the lunch lady to death.
They get involved with a motorcycle gang.
Chase. There's a car chase. So much over the top stuff that happens, which is just crazy, but works because of the world they built. Like they built this very like over the top, heightened, stylistic, kind of cartoony world, which like really allows for that kind of.
The show would make such a good like animated.
Oh my goodness, they made this in an animated show. Incredible. Yeah. But then something else that like pops up in comedic fantasy is that there's also like serious moments and themes and plots which help to ground it, because if it's nothing but the jokes, then sometimes they don't land. Like it's that contrast, and there's like some very serious moments as well that like happen in the show.
Yeah, I think with comedy it always needs to be based in reality to some extent, at least in the tiniest bit, even when you're building a fantasy world, right? Because if it's like, oh, have you ever had your oobles googled? We've all been there. The people watching it are like, no, what's an ooble? And how do you Google them? You know what I mean? Like there needs to be some sort of basis for that comedy to jump off of, because otherwise it's going to be 100% of the time. You need those peaks and valleys. I really like the fact that it has some recognizable technology, even though it's like technically crystals. We recognize that they're phones. They have cars. They have motorcycles. They're going to school. Those are things that we could recognize, and a lot of people have familiar experiences with them, even though it's not a magic school. It's not a fantasy school. We all know what it's like to go to your first day of school, or at least the vast majority of us know what it's like to be at your first day of school and kind of going, am I going to make friends? What's going to happen? There's this teacher I really don't like. Oh, there's the cool kid, and I don't know if I can approach him, kind of thing. So I think they do a really good job of having those serious moments, but also those just like very relatable, grounded, everyday sort of experiences.
As far as serious moments, I think one of the big strengths of this series is the character arcs. And I think I might be going a bit into season 2 here. So spoilers for a little bit of season 2. Fabian in particular, his dad dies in season 1. And then he sort of starts to really question himself. And I believe it's in season 2 where he actually loses his character class because and he's just like completely lost and just no longer is I forget what his fighter subclass is. And then he has like this really moving but also hilarious moment where he like dances with these elves and like finds himself. Yeah, it's very funny. And then Gorgug, I really like his arc too. He gets a girlfriend. I think he gets a girlfriend in season 1.
Yeah.
And in season 2, he sort of like forgets about her all the time, and just sort of his arc is kind of like learning that he actually matters to someone, because he sort of forgets about her. Not that it's more as he doesn't think he matters that much to her, as opposed to like he's just a horrible person. It's just like he doesn't think very highly of himself. And so part of his arc is like, learning he's actually a significant person that she cares about. Those are all serious arcs and like really fascinating character growth. And they all have something similar. Some similar.
There's like a lot of like family stuff too. Like Kristen's family basically like disowns her because she steps up from the faith and also comes out as
Diane's family is horrible and does not support her.
Abusive and like
abusive.
Leaves her alone, and like so they're all dealing with like serious
tortures
stuff.
her sister.
So there's these beautifully serious moments surrounded by all this like crazy absurdity and humor and comedy.
I love the juxtaposition and the combination of both those two things.
It makes both things hit harder, I think, because you have that like back and forth. And then really quickly, I just want to talk about some of like the role-playing aspects and how that influences the world, which is like the collaborative storytelling, which I touched on before, like is a huge thing. Because it's not just one person, or sometimes, even with books, sometimes you'll have 2 people, but it's like, it's not just one person who's like deciding the story. It's one person who kind of makes a sandbox, and then a bunch of people all come and play in it and like add things to the world and add things to the story, which makes it really dynamic and like has things happen that you wouldn't plan for, like the ending of episode 2, or like directions that characters take.
But it takes a really strong world to make that happen, though.
Also, if you're not used to that collaborativeness, it can be hard to let go of your own plan. Like, it's really impressive that Brennan let go of all of that plan he had for Eggfort, for Professor Eggfort. And just was like, okay, he's dead now. Like, that takes a
Where do we go?
What does that take? It takes a really experienced person, I think, to be able to do that. And just let that go and not stick to the path that he had planned. And then you see the characters doing that all the time by playing off of each other and what each other is doing.
Yeah, and also the fact that there's the element of chance built into this particular game, the way that there's not when you're writing a novel, necessarily, right? Because if you get a good roll or a bad roll will determine how the plot goes, or how your character goes, or like what happens next.
Fabian's battle rolls in particular are really funny, because sometimes he'll roll like super amazing and he'll do these like really acrobatic moves, and then other times he gets his whole party killed or whatever. So it's very funny.
Yeah, like in the cafeteria battle where I believe every single one of them tried to jump on a table and they all failed.
But then the lunch lady tried to jump on the table and also failed. And they're like, who's lacquering these tables?
So those are some things that make this also unique above and beyond like a regular kind of comedic fantasy story, is just those elements of like that add, which I think works really well for comedy, because the elements of like randomness and chance and absurdity are so much heightened that having those dice rolls throw chaos into it like really can help with the comedic aspect for sure. With that, I think it's time to head on over to Proprietor's Pick. Allison, what the heck did you find that will match this?
This one was a tall order, eh?
Yeah.
I wish there was a book just like this out there. I really want Dimension 20 to kind of do what Critical Role is doing and start making like TV shows and books and stuff, because I would totally be into it. So I found a book that is by the same author that wrote Artemis Fowl. So I thought that was
there's
kind
a
of
blast from the past.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's High Fire by Owen Colfer. From the New York Times best-selling author of the Artemis Fowl series comes a hilarious and high-octane adult novel about a vodka-drinking, flash dance-loving dragon who lives an isolated life in the bayous of Louisiana, and the raucous adventures that ensue when he crosses paths with a 15-year-old troublemaker on the run from a crooked sheriff. So this sounds kind of outrageous.
That sounds like my life story, actually.
The reviews on this one seem kind of polarizing, like either you really love this or you don't. So,
Oh, that makes me interested in it, because
Oh, yeah.
especially when something is supposed to be funny, humor especially is very
it's so
polarizing. So if you have
humor
a
is
split,
really tough
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's so subjective. What some people find funny, others just don't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that makes sense. So you can buy this book on our bookshop.org page, supporting us and an indie bookstore. And highly, highly recommend watching Fantasy High. It's got 3 seasons right now on Dimension 20. I'm in the second one and excited to watch the third one.
Yeah.
too.
Dropout is their own streaming service. Their prices are really reasonable. They have a bunch of other shows too that are absolutely fantastic. They have like Game Changer,
but
which is
also the first season of Fantasy High is
also
available
on
for
YouTube,
free
right? Oh, yeah,
on
it's-
YouTube.
yes. Yeah. So you can check it out there, and then if you like it, you could consider subscribing. Little plug for Dropout, who does not sponsor this. That would be fantastic.
No, we just
That would
love
be
them.
They're also seem to be run by really good people, like
Yes.
which is hard to find. So I like it when you can support something that seems like it's doing.
Yeah,
some
and
good.
like Emma was saying, they have a bunch of other really fun shows.
Make Some Noise and Game Changer are
Yeah.
my favorites.
Actually,
good.
there's like there's just
Actually,
just go check it out. You will.
Yeah.
I think that it's well worth your. I think it's like still only like $10 or something, like really inexpensive. So yeah, it's well worth it. With that, we are at last call. Here are our concluding thoughts and questions to take from Fantasy High freshman year and apply to your own world building. I really liked the elements that improv brought to the show, and I think that can be really helpful in your world building. So my advice is to yes and your world and your plot. And what I mean by that is yes anding is it's like the golden rule of improv, which is when something happens or when someone you're in a scene with says something, you don't say no. You say yes, and then this happens, and you build on it. It's a yes and then. So, and I think that can be a really great way, especially when you're writing comedy, but really, I think it can apply to a lot of genres, is, especially when you're, like, trying to think of plot, or you're outlining, or you're brainstorming, just think of, okay, this happened, and then what could come from that? Like, what's the funniest thing, or what's the most heightened thing? And at some point, you might get too absurd, or too big, you might have to dial it back, but it's a great way to just give yourself the freedom to explore your plot and your world and figure out it can be a great way to combat writer's block or like world builder's block, I think. So take a page out of some improv if you're stuck or if you're brainstorming, and yes and yourself and your characters.
Yeah.
Christiana, what do you think we can take from Fantasy High and apply to world building?
Your advice, yes. And I
Look at that.
think in real life,
We're so good at this.
I really, really enjoyed anything that kind of combines fantasy and tech in a way that's not central to the plot. So you see stories like Arcane, where the tech is very central to the plot and it's a big thing. But I really also enjoy stories like the Crescent City series. Not the most fantastic world building, I think, personally. But a good example of a fantasy world in which they have cell phones and they use them. A book series that I certainly wouldn't suggest for world building, my apologies to fans of it, is the Zodiac Academy. That's another one. They go to a school. It's a school for magic. And they have pseudo cell phones and talk on it. And I enjoy it when you can incorporate tech and things like that into a fantasy setting without it being like the whole entire point of it. I always think that adds like one interesting extra little kind of tidbit to it. So I think that's something you could take from the world building in this, is that they combine a lot of different genres. They combine tech, they combine fantasy, they combine kind of modern day, they combine 50s greasers, they combine a lot of different things and mesh it all together. And what that makes is for a really rich world that you can explore.
Totally. And really, especially great for comedy, where you just have all these different things to play with and juxtapose and bounce off of each other. Totally. Allison, what do you take from Fantasy High that we can apply to world building?
I like Fantasy High as an example of the multiple ways that a show or a story can be funny. There's no one way to be humorous. Like, you can have your one-liners, you can have just really quirky characters, you can have absurd situations. I think when writing comedic fantasy in particular, it's fun to play off your world. So you have just these really outrageous situations, like Christiana was saying, and you base that in the world that you have built. And I also think the high contrast situations that we talked about are worth thinking about deeper in your own world. Like, okay, I have this character who's this giant barbarian. What might make a contrast to that? So it could be something in his own story or his own character, like, oh, he's actually a big softie and he's not like this angry person. Or, oh, he actually has this family who teaches him to sing a song when he's mad. You know, just like brainstorming high contrast situations or characters can really make your story feel funny, even if you're not necessarily good at like one-liners or like jokes in dialogue, which not everyone is good at, and also not everyone finds funny.
Even like the vice principal being like a big dragonborn wearing like a really tight suit.
Yeah,
like that's kind of funny. Like they wear clothes in this world. Yeah. What does a dragon
even
wear?
This world itself
an uncomfortable suit.
Being like this 1950s ish 1980s America, but set in a fantasy world is just amusing all on its own. And so you just take concepts like that and build on them. And you can have something that works as a comedic fantasy, even if you're not necessarily a comedian or good at like witty dialogue or something like that. You don't have to be good at, you know, every area of humor. You can find one that works for you or a few that work for you and make your story funny.
That's very good observation. Unfortunately, this brings us to closing time. We'd love to stay longer, but these tables aren't going to lacquer themselves so that everybody falls off of them when they jump.
That's good.
Thank you so much for joining us at the tavern. If hands-on world building is something that interests you along with these more theoretical world building sessions, make sure you check out our world building workshops. These are bonus monthly episodes where we build a different element of a world every session, which are available for patrons at our $5 and up tiers at patreon.com/worldbuilderstavern. In this month's episode, which is coming out next week, we will be, drumroll, building a pantheon. A little peek behind the recording studio here. We have not yet recorded this one, and I am very much looking forward to it because building a group of gods sounds like a great time.
It's going to be fun.
It's going to be very, very, very fun. Check out our description for a link to help a Palestinian family escape Gaza. You can find us on our website, worldbuilderstavern.com, which has links to our TikTok, Discord, and our bookshop.org page, where you can buy books that we talk about on the podcast, which supports not only us, but also an indie bookstore. We hope to serve you here again soon, but until next time, scram!
Bye!
Get out of here. I got it this time.
Yeah.